Hey, Wildflower. I'm Amy. I'm an ex-Mormon too. I help you deconstruct your Mormon brain, at the same time reconstruct your evolving post-Mormon brain in helpful and concrete ways. I want to invite you to work with me, one-on-one in a mini session. That's it. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. But if you've been life coach curious what it's actually like to work with a life coach, let's sit down together and work through a struggle you're having. All you have to do is head over to my website, amyloganlife.com, and sign up for a time that works for you. Exmormonology, Episode 16. Hey everyone, welcome to another week of Exmormonology. I'm Amy Logan, your life coach. And here we are, checking in. How are you doing this week? How are you managing your mind around all that's going on in our world, all the way down into your home and your family and yourself? Good questions for you to kind of take inventory this Friday. So I'm recording this today. It's April 2nd. Tomorrow's April 3rd. That will be 3 weeks. We have been quarantining in our household here. So 3 weeks. It's a good time to kind of evaluate how you're doing, kind of take a mental checklist of how you're feeling, and kind of keep tabs on yourself. Make sure, it's the whole analogy of the oxygen mask on you first. You need to take care of yourself right now so you can be strong for those around you, your loved ones. If you're finding that your emotions are up and down and all around, you're normal. That is normal. Welcome to the human experience. This means you're doing it right. Life is 50-50. Meaning sometimes we feel like we're on top of things and we've got everything under control. And then the other half, we don't feel that way so much. And that goes for me too. Some days are better than others for me, but I'm still working towards managing my mind every single day. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to get caught up in the I'm not doing it right kind of thinking. If you find yourself having this thinking around life in general, like BC, right, before Corona, then you might find that creeping in even more now, right? So maybe you see people on, social media and they're doing all these things and they're writing books and they're creating art, making funny videos. All right. And it looks really good. Well, that is great. And obviously we're all benefiting from all the people who are posting funny things, but I don't want you to have that add to your stress level like you're not doing enough. Okay, you're doing great, right? Cut yourself some slack, be gentle with yourself, and make sure you're tending to you and just nurturing yourself as much as you need to feel all of that wrapped around you right now, right? I do, though, believe that creating a routine for yourself and picking 1 or 2 things a day to get done or to work on is helpful. Don't think you have to do it perfectly, though. That's when we start shooting ourselves in the foot, right? There's no perfect to this. We are riding a new wave that we have never ridden before. So take care of yourself, create a routine, and pick 1 or 2 things a day that you want to do, that you could work on. Don't even feel like you have to get it done. Just maybe make a good effort. And part of that should be your mental health. This is such an important time. I mean, our mental health is always important. But now we have a crisis on our hands here in this world. And so learning how to manage your mind and how to deal with the ups and downs of all of this will be the best thing you can do for yourself. So along those lines, I want to invite you, if you're interested in working with me, I'm going to be starting a group coaching program. I'm going to take 6 people, and that's going to begin right around April 18th, 19th, or 20th, right around that time. Like I said, I'll be opening it up for 6 people. We'll meet once a week. I will be teaching you tools so you don't just not working with me one-on-one. Of course, you're always welcome to do that. I'm still coaching my people and taking new clients on. But I thought this is a little less expensive way if we do it in a group, and I can help you all. You also learn from other people because I can coach you, whether I'm coaching you or someone else in the group. We all benefit from watching coaching happening in real time with real people and real experiences. If you're interested in that, shoot me an email at amyloganlife@gmail.com and I will send you more information. But please know that you're welcome to join me in that group coaching. All right. So before we get into the deep stuff, even though this is definitely connected to you and me, Have you started watching Unorthodox yet on Netflix? I'm about halfway through, and it's about a Hasidic Jewish community, and this girl, her name's Esty. I always want to call her Etsy. Esty, her name's Esther, but they call her Esty for short. And she basically escapes this community of people. And it's so fascinating to me. And if you have watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, but you have had a faith crisis and you've left the Mormon church, I highly recommend you watch this. Now, I will say I haven't done a lot of study on Hasidic Judaism and the communities there. And so, you know, like when you see people who aren't of the Mormon faith talking about it, and sometimes they get a few things wrong, you know, that could very well be the case for this movie. But for you and me, I think we connect with this on the way of having to leave something where we know no other way. And so to see this girl, I say girl, she looks very young. She's 19 in the movie, 18, 19. And to see her on this journey as she leaves and goes into the, you know, quote unquote real world, I think you can really relate to it. So I'm coming at this movie as someone who's left a very high demand religion, dare I say cult, and leaving that experience and feeling the world feeling very, not uncomfortable, but everything just seemed a little more. I know that within the Hasidic community, it's a more extreme than like your average Mormon life, but seeing the teachings and the beliefs and the rituals and the fear, that's all the same. So I think you should have a look. There's a scene in the movie where Esty is standing in front of a lake, and there's quite a build up to this, but she's standing in front of a lake and she decides to go into the water. And she goes into the water. She's still wearing her skirt and a top, but she takes off her wig and she drops the wig into the water. And then she just goes under the water. And I just couldn't help but think of what it was like for me to take off my garments, being so afraid that something would happen to me. Seeing her go through that, and that was very symbolic as well, very emotional. All the thoughts that we've had as we've decided to no longer believe in the fear that was attached to the conditioning that we were raised to believe. All right, there's a scene in the movie where she takes a bite of a ham sandwich. You know, ham's not kosher. She didn't know there was ham in the sandwich. And once she finds out, she stands up and she runs outside as if she was going to throw up, but nothing happens. And she came back to the table that she was eating her lunch with a gentleman, and she thought, I thought that I would be sick, right? And so it was that fear of what would happen if she ate something she wasn't supposed to. And, you know, it's like if you have had a drink of alcohol, thinking like I'm going to have a sip of alcohol and I'm going to become an alcoholic. Right? Now, yes, you can drink too much alcohol and you can get sick from that. And obviously there's some health concerns around alcohol drinking, but it's just all of that fear-based conditioning we've been raised in. Drinking coffee. What happens if you go shopping on Sunday? Is something bad going to happen? Right? Just all the rituals, all the things, all the teachings, all the things we were taught. So much fear is wrapped around it if we're not doing it right. There was a scene in the movie where she's preparing to get married and she has to cleanse herself. And it's very ritualistic, purification rituals. It felt so familiar to me of what we went through when we went through the initiatory in the temple. And it's just so amazing to see the correlation. So I highly recommend you watch it. I will say if you feel yourself getting triggered, quote unquote, just know that the way we're using triggering, and I'm not using it necessarily in a PTSD, way or extreme sexual abuse in that kind of way, but we do have our own triggering that happens as we're processing all of the things that we process when we leave Mormonism. So just know what happens when you're being triggered is you're having a bunch of thoughts that just seemed uber focused at what you're, watching, and it's bringing up memories for you. Just know you're safe, and the only place that those memories live is literally in your mind. You may or may not be ready to see kind of ritual, religion, religious conditioning, and fear play out in front of you right now. But if you are all about that, then I would recommend you go watch it. I'm at the point where I feel like that's very healing for me to be able to see that play out, that it helps me realize that I wasn't the only one going through that. And not just in our faith that we leave, Jehovah's Witnesses, Hasidic Jewish communities where it's very specific and very cultural and very ritualistic, Seventh-day Adventists, Scientology, there's many other religions that would fall into that category. What you've been through with religious trauma is very real. So I don't shrug this off. It's very real. And I think that's where we connect, right? We connect through story and the human experience. And so to see people who have gone through something so similar to what we've gone through, it just feels good. It feels good to see that and to be able to approach that with curiosity. It's so interesting to me. It's kind of like you get to watch your story from a distance, right? So when I was watching that, I just kept going, oh, I know what she's feeling. I know what she's feeling. And I would just say, as I watched the character in the story, which I believe is based on a true story, and I just thought how brave she is for following her gut, what her intuition was telling her. You guys are so brave. Can we talk for a minute about General Conference? This coming weekend is General Conference, and so many of us post-Mormons kind of hover around wondering what's going to happen. Some people could care less. Some people are like, I want to know it all. I want to know the latest. So, like I mentioned last week, we have with all that's going on in the world, right? We have some religious conditioning that's coming to the surface where we're like, no, I don't believe it anymore. But what if? What if it's true? Okay, so go back and listen to last week's episode. That's episode 15. You'll know what I'm talking about. But as we're heading into General Conference, and since most of you have family members who are still members of the Mormon Church, they're talking about it. They're posting things about it and how prophetic the prophet is and all of this kind of stuff. And so I think it's very normal that you might have somewhere in the back of your brain thinking, what if they're right? Right? And I think especially around General Conference and with this pandemic we're experiencing, it's very normal, I think, for those old residual beliefs to kind of creep in. But do you find yourself oddly being curious about the things that will be spoken about at General Conference, especially now? This is totally normal, and it is part of the deconstruction of it all. Your brain wants to see the crazy a bit. Like, you're kind of fascinated with it because you're like, I used to believe all that, and I used to gather my family around, and we'd listen to General Conference together, right? And so I know you know what I mean, and now you look at it through a different lens. And you're like, I just want to see what they're talking about because I can't believe I used to believe all that. And what that does is it's helping you process what you've gone through. So don't be worried about that side of things. But what's coming up for you, I would think with a lot of people, especially religious people who are very much, these are the end of times. These are the signs. These are the things we've been taught about, right? Just know they've been singing the same song, well, the Mormon Church for 200 years, but Christianity at large for 2,000 years, right? If you do watch General Conference, just know the brethren are going to be brotherany. Not a word. I just made it up, because of patriarchy. They'll be wording things in the sense of, we love you and we've been warning you and we want you to be safe. You may be thinking, well, if you really did speak to God and have all the direct lines, why didn't you bring all the missionaries home months ago? Why have you not opened the doors to the church to be used for hospitals? And who knows, maybe they will. We don't know what's coming yet. Why have you not done XYZ, right? And on and on and on. Don't worry, they'll twist it. So it sounds like they are. I mean, they barely shut down the temples. Was it last week after the first person who died in Utah from the virus was a temple worker in the Bountiful Temple? And then, like they do everything else, revelation, we better close down the temples. So just know that as we're seeing this happen, they will be wordsmithing it so it sounds like they were doing things ahead of time. I believe it's all very calculated, not inspired. But the church will continue to do what the church does, and they'll spin it in their favor. So just know that's going to happen. Okay, they get to do what they want to do. You get to do what you want to do, which means you don't have to listen to that stuff. I know that everything seems very amplified right now, but don't let fear be your guide right now. Okay. And that's kind of what happens with all of the religious verbiage and scriptures and following God, right? It's ironic because we've been taught if you do A, B, and C, you have nothing to fear, right? So if you have the food storage, you have this, you're worthy to go to the temple, you're doing all the things just right, you have nothing to fear. But guess what? That's exactly using fear language to tell you how you should be feeling. Do all the things that we tell you to, church members, and you have nothing to fear. But that very idea is placing fear in you, because then what if you don't? What if you haven't done all those things? So then does that mean, yes, you should be scared? Okay, step back and just kind of take that in for a minute. The words that they say are cushioned around. If you've done it all that we've told you, if you are living the church like you're supposed to, you do not have to fear. So just like the Esty in the movie when she takes off her wig, that was a scary thing to do, right? Because she believed that was part of being Jewish. That was part of her sect of Judaism, that's what they're supposed to do. Letting go of the fear that has been specifically framed around all that you should do is a fear tactic. That is the exact fear-based conditioning you have been raised with. And if you find yourself extra scared right now, thinking, what if they're right? Please know that your brain is just finding ways to cope. And your old neural pathways are doing what it thinks is best to try to keep you safe. This is exactly why religious trauma is a real thing. Years of repetition have kept you afraid. Don't step your toe outside of this line that we've drawn safely around you to keep you safe. And this is why leaving your religion, no matter the religion, is a very scary thing to do. So just be taking that all in. If you are going to hover around General Conference, just know that that will be laced with the verbiage around fear, trying to keep you in the fold, trying to keep you safe. It's safe if you stay in with us, so you have no need to fear. But that very wording is actually laced with fear. Mental health during a pandemic. Your experience of your world around you is always tied to your mental health, even now. So how are you coping with anxiety when it creeps in? Are you taking care of yourself right now in the present moment? I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but you get to decide how you want to show up during this crisis that we find ourselves in. We are in the early stages of looking at our future through a different lens, realizing that life may never go back to what normal was. What is normal anyway? Life could be very different. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but we do get to stop and evaluate what was, what is right now, and the possibility of an unknown future. But the truth is, our future is always unknown. So how you're dealing with the current circumstance of the world, of your family, of where you are right now, is most likely how you have dealt with crisis or pain in your past at any point. I know with me, when I was going through my faith crisis, and everything was still very raw, and I felt like a very wounded soul, physically, spiritually, emotionally, I became very depressed for a time. This was, of course, before I had thought work to help me through this and the model to help me manage my mind. All the old neural pathways kept creeping back in and saying, see, Amy, this is how you deal with stress. And I kind of would go into like a frozen mold, right? Recoiling, going back into the cave where it felt safe, which might just be my bed, right? I allowed myself to do this for a time, but I now choose when those old, even now with all that's going on, I've had my moments too, you guys. I recognize what's happening. Okay, Amy, this is what your brain does to try to keep you safe. All right. And I may allow that for a little time. I'm comforting myself, but I choose not to indulge in that too long because I get to be the boss of my brain and I get to decide, right? Like, okay, that no longer serves you. What can you do now? I want you to see that the old adage, old habits die hard, is real. Okay, so the way you deal with anything is probably how you deal with everything. But, and this is a huge but, you have the power and the ability to do things differently. So for example, I've been coaching one of my clients the last little bit around relationships and how comparing all women, like all women do this, was his old thought pattern, right? All women behave this way. And we could look at the current relationship and see how that way of dealing with relationships has continued to create a looping thought pattern for him, which then created a looping type of relationship. So even though this is what I mean when we can't believe all our thoughts to be true, we know logically not all women, not all men do things the same. But we draw from our past. So if we can go, well, look, she did this, she did this, she did this. So that means that all women do this. We actually get to stop ourselves in the middle of that type of thinking and seeing that if I want my future relationships to be different, I have to start thinking differently right now. Sometimes you have to put the brakes on a little fast, like if you're driving down the road and you stop the car to turn around. Okay, it takes a minute. This is the same thing with your brain and your thoughts. Those are the type of thoughts that you may have that you don't even realize you believe are 100% true. And you know how I'm always like, your thoughts aren't always true. Your thoughts aren't always facts. This is one of those things. So it's the same thing with your mental health. If you're someone who says, I get very depressed, I'm very anxious, I have social anxieties, I have this, I have that. Okay, first of all, you're labeling yourself, which is like, you're just like, this is just how it is. Okay, that takes all your own power away and gives it away to whatever that is. You get to consciously make different thoughts. So the reason I'm telling you all this is you get to decide right now how you want to handle this crisis of our pandemic, no matter what. Okay, so no matter if you're having a family crisis, a health crisis, a world crisis, a personal crisis, a faith crisis, how do you want to show up right now? Even in a crisis. It literally is, okay, brace yourself. It literally is that easy. You get to decide. Now, your brain will do what it does best and try to keep you safe and tell you that you should just do what you've always done. So insert that. Well, I'm an anxious person, so I'm going to be more anxious because this is terrible, right? Your brain is going to go to those things because that's comfortable for you. But this is how we know that the circumstance doesn't matter, because you probably handle most things in your life in a similar way, no matter the circumstance. You and your brain matter. Right now, as you listen to my words, your brain is trying to gather all the reasons why you can't thrive through this crisis and how your situation is different. Listen, even if the world falls apart and you lose all your money, or someone in your family gets sick, or you get sick, you still get to decide how you want to show up, even in the worst of circumstances. Okay, that doesn't mean that you won't cry or be angry or have a hard time. All right, grieving, sadness, anger, frustration, it's all a part of the human experience. Feel it all. But also, so is happiness, joy, and peace. All of those emotions are available to you right now. So I want to end with a quote from Viktor Frankl. And I can't remember if I've recommended this book before or not, but Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote a book talking about his experiences as a prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. He made some decisions in some horrific conditions, and I really recommend you read this book. I think every human should be required to read this once a year. It's really that good. So, quote from Viktor Frankl, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." So, my friend, as you are navigating this unknown path we all find ourselves on, how do you want to show up? How do you want to choose to feel about all of this, no matter what happens? And I know that might seem a little strange, but you really do have that much power in your brain, in your head, and you're smart. Our life paths have crossed. And that means I know how smart you are because you have gone through something very scary, and that is a faith crisis. And you're doing your studying, and you are finding your own way, and you're finding a way to make your life better because of what you went through. All right, you guys, I hope that you are finding peace in the storm. And I hope that some of you will come and join me in my group coaching where I can work with you closer. I'm actually calling it Finding the Calm. That's my specialty. That's my gift, to be able to learn how to find the calm. There you go, you guys. Hang in there. Until next time, I'll see you on Exmormonology.